Good morning. The most important thing, the Opel Corsa E has no rust problems, although its predecessor, a car of almost the same design, let's recall, is known for its corrosion problems. Repeated problems mainly concern the wiper motor harness wearing out and possibly faulty electrical elements of the interior equipment. It was hard to have any complaints about the Corsa D. The Corsa E would probably be the same, if not for the fact that Opel released cars with not one, but two very serious manufacturing defects, for which service campaigns were announced. One of these problems was a cracking steering rack, and the other was a loose connection between the steering knuckle and the wishbone. In both cases, the occurrence of a fault may cause the Opel Corsa E to lose control, and it will be impossible to avoid a collision or accident. For this reason, it is absolutely necessary to check whether the given model has already been checked and possibly repaired at an authorized service station, or because it is possible that it did not require it. Apart from the issues mentioned above, there are no serious repeatable model-specific issues in this category. It's more of a case of typical wear and tear, similar to the Corsa D. In the Opel Corsa E, the engine range was slightly simplified compared to its predecessor, although the choice was still large. In the case of engines powered by petrol or gas, the biggest change was the inclusion of more turbocharged units in the range. The offer included engines 1.0 turbo, 90 or 115 HP, 1.2 70 HP, 1.4 90 HP, also in EcoFlex and LPG versions, 1.4 turbo, 100 or, in the GSI version, 150 HP, 1.6 turbo, OPC 207 HP. Most of the engines were taken over from the predecessor, only the smallest engine was a complete novelty. It is also more risky in terms of the risk of failure and potential repair costs. Its typical failure is the loss of compression pressure in the third cylinder. These engines were sometimes replaced under warranty, which of course has long since expired. The 1.0 turbo is the only engine in the range that also has direct fuel injection, which is the cause of carbon deposits. And yes, there is no mistake in the list, the basic 1.4 turbo had 100 HP, while the 1.0 offered at the same time could have had 115. There is still a problem with the ignition coils of the 1.2 and 1.4 engines. The 1.4 turbo is compounded by a faulty but relatively cheap to repair intake manifold. The camshaft seals may be leaking. Overall, apart from the 1.0 turbo unit, it is quite good. The 1.7-liter Isuzu engine was dropped from the 5th generation Opel Corsa range, leaving the 1.3-liter CDTI as the only diesel engine on offer. Versions with 75 and 95 horsepower were offered. There are basically no changes in terms of typical faults compared to its predecessor. You still have to take into account the stretching timing chain or the so-so life of the turbocharger. The fuel pump tightness requires checking, and there are also typical faults with injectors or the particulate filter, which is no different from other turbo diesels. The Opel Corsa E was offered with 5 types of gearboxes. These were 5-speed manual gearbox, standard for all naturally aspirated engines, and the 1.3 CDTI. 6-speed manual gearbox, standard in all other engine versions, and reportedly in the 95 HP 1.3 CDTI, with a maximum torque of 210 Nm. The 190 Nm version, if the data is to be believed, has 5 gears. 5-speed Easytronic automated gearbox, option on 1.4 EcoFlex, and 1.3 CDTI 95 HP 190 Nm. 6-speed automatic gearbox, optional on the 90 HP 1.4. The 5-speed gearbox is generally trouble-free, although it is certainly not world-class in terms of gear-changing pleasure. This type has it. The 6-speed manual is the M20 gearbox, a smaller relative of the M32. This would be bad news if it weren't for the fact that the M20 was improved in 2012, i.e. during the Corsa D era. It shouldn't cause any problems in the Corsa E, although it's certainly worth thinking about changing the oil periodically. Easytronic is an option for the brave, and additionally undemanding, or masochistic. It is hard to point to a car on the market that has a really successful, pleasant to use, and service-friendly automated gearbox. Easytronic is certainly not one. There is no point in bothering with cars with this transmission. As for the hydrokinetic automatic, the 4-speed gearbox in the Corsa D has been replaced with a more modern 6-speed GM6T3 0. This is not a popular gearbox, so there is little information about it, but it can be safely assumed that it is a better option than Easytronic. Users recommend frequent oil changes, every 50,000 kilometers, but it is worth consulting an automatic transmission service, although frequent replacement certainly won't hurt. On the one hand, manufacturing defects happen to almost every brand, from Dacia to Rolls-Royce. On the other hand, it's a shame that the ones in the Corsa are so serious. On the third, after checking or after dealing with the issue, the car will be a completely safe city car, and in addition, in most versions, at least fairly reliable. However, everyone repeats as one that there is no point in focusing on the cheapest models. In the case of this car, the difference in the quality of the models offered after paying extra is very noticeable. In view of the above, I also see no reason to advise against the Corsa E. And if you know of any common errors, your comments are welcome.
Camipro Website ist Katalog aller Automarken, Motoren, Getriebe, was bricht und bei welchem Kilometerstand. Welche Pakete können Ihre Tasche hart belasten? Dieses und vieles mehr über Autos erfahren Sie auf Camipro.